everybody. This is Eric and from American Business Systems, and I want to welcome everybody here this afternoon. You're in for a treat. For those who have not heard Steve in his interview, it's been probably a couple of years ago since we've had him on, but he has got some exciting things he wants to share with us, some things that he's just done here recently. And what's exciting is that I was actually helpful in some of the things that he was able to accomplish here. We're going to talk about that, the importance of the support here that we have at ABS, especially in these demonstrations of our software for you, on behalf of you, for your potential clients. And so we're actually going to kind of get involved in that this afternoon. You're going to hear that from Steve. Obviously, we're going to have Patrick Phillips on here this afternoon, who is the CEO and founder of American Business Systems. So we're very privileged to have both of these men on our webinar this afternoon. So Patrick, thanks so much for being with us. And let's talk real quickly about our training class that we actually have coming up here in just a few weeks.
Yeah, folks, these training classes have been filling up, haven't they, Erica? The last, 4 or 5 of them that we've had. I remember somewhere in maybe September or even August of last year, they started filling up and we literally sold out and had to turn people away. So we're just saying that so that you know that if you are interested in coming to the training, you got to get your due diligence done and your paperwork done and your funding as quickly as possible so that you can tell the business coach that you're working with here, hey, I went in that class, save me a seat.
You bet. Patrick, I say let's just get to the nitty gritty. I know Steve's a very busy guy, and we've got him by phone. So, Steve, Patrick, why don't you take it away, and I'll just kind of sit here in the background waiting for and watching and monitoring the questions as they come in.
Good. We hope he's still on there. Steve, you with us still?
I am here, absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this again, Steve. You did this, it's been a couple of years ago, and we were just so excited about what you've been doing here lately. Eric's been kind of filling me in on some of the stuff that you guys have been doing. I thought we got to get you back on here and kind of get people up to speed. So let me just start by letting you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, maybe what your background was when you got into business, and just whatever you want to say about yourself.
Okay, so I was an attorney for 15 years. I did a lot of estate planning work.
We will not hold that against you. No, we're not going to hold that against you.
Appreciate that. So I decided to get out of that. I wanted to go into some ministry work, and I went off to a seminary, and I did some pastoring, and then I moved again. And when I moved again, I was interested in doing some other kind of ministry, but I wanted to have a side business, something that would give me a little bit of an additional income that we could kind of build some things with, and pay off debts and things along those lines. So we started just looking into different franchises, licensees, different business opportunities that we could find. And I mean, I looked at hundreds of them.
Really?
Wow, yeah, I did.
You do your due diligence then, huh?
Yeah. I mean, some of them were crazy. Some of them, I couldn't even understand why I would have to pay in order to do it. It was so basic and simple. But the one that caught my eye, and like I said, I didn't just like go online and look, but I actually emailed and spoke to probably a half a dozen or more of the ones that I looked at, that I weeded down. And then I found the ABS, and I really liked the look of it. I really liked the idea, the business itself, the model, and all that. And so we decided to go ahead and jump into it. And so it's my wife and I are in it, and my son Joe is in it. And Joe is doing the marketing, most of the marketing, and then I kind of do the technical stuff in the background, and Lisa helps me with that. And it's actually been, it's been good. It's been a good business for us to have. And it's slowly building. It takes time to build a business. I know. I started my own law practice 30 years ago, 25 years ago, and it took a long time before I was really, it took about 3 to 5 years for me to really be sort of established in my practice. And this is taking time. I've been doing it for a little over 2 years, and it has been taking time, but now we've been there for a while, and we're starting to see some of the fruit of our labors coming toward us, which is very nice.
Yeah, that's exciting. Now you're up in Vermont still?
Yes, we're currently in Vermont. We're actually going to be moving to Louisville, Kentucky, where we used to live, because the market is just too small in Vermont. Even though we did manage to get 3 clients up there, which is actually pretty good for Vermont in the time frame that we had. But it's just such a small market. It's really hard to work in that market.
I got you.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what was Lisa, your wife, actually working at the time, or did she just jump in here with you?
She's just jumping in here with me. Yeah, she was not
Yeah.
working at the time.
All
Yeah.
right. And what was Joe doing anything at the time, or is he working with you full time now?
He is. He's working with us full time now, but he was, when we started, he was working for Verizon as a cell phone salesman.
Oh, that's right. I remember him
Yeah.
telling us about that there in the class. Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
All right.
He
Well,
likes
hey,
us a lot
Hey,
better.
Patrick, I was going to interject here. I was going to let everybody, you and Steve, know I'm going to be monitoring these questions, and there's some questions coming in. So, Patrick, whenever you're ready, I'll share some of these questions. But go ahead and keep going here.
Yeah, and let me just say this, folks. On the questions, be sure and just type these questions as if you're just speaking directly to Steve, and just ask him, hey, Steve, what about this or that? Because we want this to be you doing your due diligence as you listen to this interview with Steve, and getting the facts from somebody who is, not going to lie to you. I'm assuming that, Steve. Am I right there?
Yes, you were right. I will not lie to them.
Okay. And I need to clarify this, because your family looks so perfect there in this picture I have up there. You're not just models or something, actors. I mean, we didn't just hire you to get on there, did we?
Yeah, I think anybody who looks at that picture knows we're not models.
You remember? Yeah, we took that picture at the end of the workshop, and folks, if you come down here to the training, you'll see at the end we have a little graduation ceremony and so forth, and then we always take a picture like this. And the reason we do that is because of what we're doing right here. When we do an interview with somebody, we try to at least show people that they're real people. So, okay, so anyway, I see some of those questions coming in, but let me ask you to kind of give us a helicopter view of the business. You said you had 3 businesses or 3 clients in Vermont. Do you have more than that now in other places?
Yeah, so what we did was it took us about 6 months to get our first client. And that was just by my son walking into an office and talking to the office manager, and they were looking for someone. They were actually at the moment looking for a biller, and we ended up connecting with them. And then it took a little while after that to get our second one, but then we got our second and our third pretty quick right after that. But like I said, it was slow going. It was just not so much slow going in the sense of not getting clients. We were getting clients. We had income coming in, which was great. But just the number of prospects that we were dealing with were small, because, the best way for me to say it is the entire state of Vermont by population is the 87th largest metropolitan area in the United States. So there are actually 87 cities bigger than the entire state of Vermont. All right?
Oh, really?
So that's what we were dealing with.
I did not
and people don't get how small it is up there. And so the number of doctors, also, by the way, it has the 10th lowest percentage of independent doctors in the country. So, the percentage of independents compared to total doctors, it's very low there too. And so we feel like we did a really good job getting 3 clients to sign with us. We used a variety of methods. We got one through a cold call. We got one through a BNI connection, Business Networking International. And we got another one through a independent doctor group that we connected with, that Joe connected with. And we were able to get one from them. So 3 different methods to get 3 different clients. So we felt like, we did pretty well, but the number of prospects, just the possibilities, the potential was small. So we decided we had lived in Louisville for 10 years, so we decided to go down there. So we sent Joe down to start marketing. And now we have 2 years of experience under our belt, which helps. And I mean, he started marketing, and we were just getting meeting after meeting. So we did 2 demos within 2 months of him coming down here. We signed one of the clients. We have 2 more clients on the line that we're still talking to. One is a very large autism school that is now using insurance, and they're using actually paper charts and paper bills, and we're going to help them go electronic, hopefully. But that's another really great lead for us. And then he got just this past week, he got us another meeting with another doctor in a town just nearby, and so it's really been kind of popping really nicely as we've followed the formula. We've done the connections that we need to connect with. We have a better warm market here in Louisville than we had in Vermont, because we had 10 years of people that we knew down here, and that warm market now is starting to pay off. So it's been kind of cool. And when you go to the training, they give you, like, I don't know, what is it, 14 different marketing methods, Patrick? I can't remember the number.
Yeah, there's about a dozen or so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so and we've used, like I said, we used 3 different methods in Vermont. The client we just signed, that came from a 4th different method, looking at job postings online for medical billers, and then the next one that we're going to be talking to, that came from a warm market referral, and so it's like every one, we've used several of those techniques to get the contacts and the clients that we have. So it's a good training, a broad training that helps. And I remember Patrick saying, he's had people tell him that he's had somebody comment that every single one of those methods that it didn't work, and he's had people comment that every single one of those methods does work. And so we've had that experience too. Many of those methods have worked for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people, look, just go out and try the first method that seems to fit your time, your budget, your personality, or whatever. And if that doesn't work after a little while, just try one of the others. Or the best thing, of course, is to have several things going at one time, which you probably
exactly
at one time.
Yeah.
Hey, Patrick, okay, let me jump in here. So Andrea is asking, so hey, Steve, what is the most challenging obstacle that you had to overcome when building your business? Sound like, obviously the amount of doctors in Vermont, but outside of that, what you may find out to be some of the most challenging obstacles that you had to overcome?
I would say, I don't know if it was the most challenging, but it was the most important one, was just learning the medical billing business. And because when you come out of Texas, you're shown the software, kind of you get to run it a little bit on the first day, and then you talk about marketing, and there's really so when you leave there, you kind of have to learn a little bit more about it. And there are books and webinars, and there are things that you can do to learn that. So it's not difficult. It's not like a secret, but it did take a little bit of time to become more fluent and become more of an expert in the medical billing area, just the terminology and things like that. And I think that was the most helpful thing we did. So I don't know if it was the most daunting and challenging, because it's not that hard to learn, but it was helpful to take the time and learn that.
Yeah, and we tell people, look, even though we do give you some hands-on on the system when you're in the classroom, you're not going to learn everything about our software system, because it's pretty intricate. You're not going to learn all that in one day's time or even a week's time. But you don't need to know about it, of course, until you really get a client, and that's when you learn, right? You're forced to get in there, and of course we have people who will hold your hand and tutor you through that process. But it's still a lot of this is just a business. There's a lot to learn.
There is, and I would even say not just that you don't need to learn it until you have your first client, but it's almost like you won't be able to learn it until you're ready to actually use it. Because I've thought about this a lot. Like, what if we had a second week in Texas and we just sat there and learned the software? Well, we would have no practical application for it yet. It would all be theoretical, and I don't think it would necessarily help us. But once we got out there into the marketplace, then we were able to learn it and apply it and to really know it and become more of an expert in it. So that was the thing that really helped us.
That's a great point, Steve. That there's no reason to learn a piece of software unless you've got a reason to start using it, right? And it might be for some people Yeah, and just like you, for some people, it's 60, 90 days, sometimes in some cases like you, 6 months before you actually get a client. So you would have forgotten everything you'd learned in that second week if we'd have had a second week of training. Yeah.
Absolutely. We would have learned, yeah. Because I thought about that a lot. And I thought, well, what would I have done? And I really could not think of a way to make it work based on the progression that you have to have. But one of the things that's really good is that if you go on the ABS website and you look at the webinars, there's some really great webinars. I mean, there's a lot of webinars on marketing, which is, of course, the most important thing. You have to have a client before you do anything else. But there's also some really good webinars just on the running of the business, how to handle accounts receivables, how to handle the reports, how to, things along those lines, which I have found to be extremely helpful. So.
Yeah, and as you know, inside the software itself, there's a link that you can click on there on the first page that takes you to a training page that has literally dozens and dozens of little snippet, tutorial about how to put in a new patient, how to do this, how to do that. So that's a good way to learn. Hey, thanks, Eric. Eric is actually showing on the screen right now. I guess that's live. Is that live, Eric, the Licensee Sports site?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Why don't you kind of go through some of those menus or just show what's in the drop-down menus there as I'm continuing asking Steve some questions here. Okay, so what I want to do, Steve, is that was the most challenging obstacle for you then to learn the actual day-to-day, how to hands-on do the actual medical billing.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, well, that's a great one. Hey, I've got one other question here that it's from Sepida, and I think you've already answered, of course. But I want to address this. When she says, how long did it take you to get the first client? And you said 6 months. Can you give us a feel for why it took that long, Steve? What was it, the biggest reason why it took longer than, 30 or 60 days?
Okay, so first thing was when we first started, Joe was doing our marketing, and we were trying to do direct contact marketing. And he was working at Verizon at the time. So there was only like a day or 2 days at the most a week that he could actually devote to doing the marketing.
Okay.
So that, of course, has something to do with it. I mean, if you could do it every single day, then you would get more, connections and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I think that probably had the biggest part to do with it. And then, like I said, also just what we found in Vermont. Again, this is unique to Vermont. This is not to tell you that wherever you are, it's going to be like this. But Vermont is so small that, we're in Louisville right now. Louisville is a pretty big city. In fact, there are more people living in the city of Louisville than the entire state of Vermont. So Louisville is one of those cities that's bigger. And if you walk into a doctor's office or somebody's office, it's like a personal touch. You actually take the time to fight traffic and come and show up there. But in Vermont, if they don't know you, then it's like it's almost like a suspicious thing. Like, what are you doing here? It is the strangest thing. It's like when I say know you, I don't even mean they have to have seen you before, but it's like there has to be somebody in your past. Did my cousin go to school with your daughter? There has to be some connection somewhere before they'll even trust you.
Well, they may all be related to one another.
It's possible. I mean, so we did get one, and then we were struggling still some more, and we actually called into ABS, and they connected us with a coach. And one of the things that coach, we told the coach what was going on, and the coach said, okay, well, what you need to be doing is you need to be going to like a BNI. So we went to a BNI, and within like a month after going to BNI, we had our next client. So when we felt frustrated, we were able to go to somebody who had more experience, and they were able to direct us into what we needed to do in our market. So that was kind of cool.
Okay, let's see. I want to get one here from Kenneth. He says, Steve, what kept you from reaching your business goals, reaching your business contacts outside of Vermont while you were still living there? It's kind of hard, I guess. Yeah, go ahead.
That was my thing. It's like what we sat down, and I wanted to build a base in Vermont, and then I wanted to use that base to reach out to other places. And I didn't want to incur the expense of reaching out beyond Vermont when I didn't have income coming in. So that was just the decision I made. Now, when I was in the position all you were in, trying to decide if I should do this, I spoke to a licensee who was living, I think, in Arizona, and his first client was in Philadelphia. And so he took a different tact, and he found clients outside of his local area, and that's fine. But we kind of decided at first to just do it that way, and it wasn't a good decision on our part because, like I said, we found that it became very hard to market there, and now we understand that, and we've moved on. So
sure. Well, you live and learn. And
you live and learn.
Yeah, some things work for one person, and it won't work for another person. So that's why we have a dozen different ways to market this, because over the 25 years we've been doing this, we have found that there's really only a dozen or so things that actually work. Not that there's not others we haven't discovered already, but we actually add new ones, along the way as we find out new stuff too. Right. So we're learning just like everybody else is, even after 25 years. I don't know if folks are watching the screen there, but Eric is showing some terrific stuff. Steve, did you find that to be true when the first time you logged into the licensee support website? Did you notice that there was a boatload of stuff there?
Oh yeah, yeah. The website is great. When we first started, we were going there all the time. There's a lot of good resources. There's even things like if you need to price your services to somebody, they have pricing lists and all the various different things that you need to find to get that. A lot of good stuff there, and once you've been doing it for a while, you kind of get to know the thing. You don't necessarily have to go back as often, but when you're first starting, it's invaluable. There's just a ton of stuff in there.
Yeah, I've had a fellow who had bought a franchise of some sort, cost him, $75,000, he said. And he said they didn't have anywhere near what you guys have on the back side, like this licensee support website. And we put a lot of time and post things on there on a regular basis. Eric, can you show them maybe the news page, for example? And you'll see there's probably something posted there, in the last week or so. At least once or twice a week, we'll be posting new things. It has to do sometimes with yeah, there you go. What is that date? I can't even see that. It's tiny on my screen.
April the 11th.
Okay, so there you go. That's today, isn't it? And there's one on the 3rd, right? One on the 30th of March. So this is updated on a regular basis. And Eric, if you'll slide down there on the right side, you'll see we've been doing this since, I think it was October of 2014 in those archives there. Doesn't that go back to way back there? Yeah. So anyway, there's lots of stuff out there. We just thought we'd give you guys a preview of that. Okay, well, I wanted to kind of talk too about our back-end support, Steve, and let you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll bring in Eric here about what you guys have done here recently on a couple of deals.
Okay, so I think the most valuable part of ABS is the back-end support. I mean, the training you get up front about marketing and all that, that's really helpful. That's wonderful. But once you get out there, you don't know what you're going to see and what you're going to have to handle. I have had conversations with, so when I've gotten stuck, I've gone back to ABS and said, hey, I've got a problem. Is there someone who can help me? I've had conversations with people who are really good at marketing and can coach in marketing. I was having trouble with with just kind of managing accounts receivable, like insurance payables and stuff for practices. They hooked me up with a coach. She was phenomenal, so helpful. Like I was really kind of freaking out a little bit, a little irrationally. And she just was able to just super encourage me and show me what to do and all that. It was super helpful. And then just recently, we started an implementation recently. And I felt like in the implementations we did for the previous clients, we weren't as good as we could be. And so I wanted to reach out to someone to help us kind of think through the best way to do implementation. And ABS connected me with someone who sat, we just spent an hour and he walked me through things and we shared a screen and he showed me all the stuff. I mean, it's just like anything that you need, they're able to connect you with that. And that doesn't even count. I don't know how many emails I've sent ABS support just asking questions that I didn't need to talk to someone, but you get answers, you get them back very quickly. And they're always very helpful. And so this is, to me, that's the price. That's what you're paying the money for, is to get this for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
and it's been very, very good with that, I have to say.
Chad, who's our director of support here in our offices here in the Keller, he said, yeah, I set up a special folder just for Steve Matteucci because all of his emails go straight into that folder. I don't know if he just deletes the folder every once in a while or what.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys, well, thank you for sharing that about support because that is an important part. And one of the reasons we do that, of course, is a lot of people don't realize we as a company actually make money on the back end as well from our technology partners. A few pennies on each transaction, it adds up when you got millions of transactions going through. Right, so that's why we do that, and that's why we extended our support, to lifetime support. I guess it was lifetime when you joined a couple years ago.
It was, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And we did that because we thought, okay, if we're going to continue making money on folks, why wouldn't we support them forever?
That's right. And so I actually remember when I was doing my due diligence, asking the person I was talking to, I forget who it was, but I was asking, how do you guys make money? Because obviously the initial fee is one way that you make money, but you're talking about lifetime support. So how can I be sure that I'm going to get this lifetime worth of support? And then that's when they told me that you guys make money on the back end, and that's why you're able to do this. And I thought, well, that's great because there's no way you're doing it on the $26,000 that I paid you. There's just no way you could do that forever. But so that made perfect sense to me.
Well, and it's because we're a family-owned business. A lot of people don't realize that it's actually better if you're working with a family-owned business because you've got family members who are going to continue that business, who want to continue providing for them and their families. And it's not like a big corporate that people come and go. Everybody in our office, I think, has been there for like 10 years plus. So that's the reason why we love the fact that just like Hershey and Starbucks and some of the other UPS, they were all privately owned companies. It's when people go really, really big and corporate that you start losing that that personal touch.
Personal touch, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so explain to us a little bit. Eric, are you still there with us? He's so quiet.
I am. I was actually muted. I was about to talk, but I was going to say, this is a good time to talk a little bit about the demonstrations that we do with the support, and let's talk about that with Steve and what the impact of the live demonstrations of the software will do for you.
Yeah, and why don't we let kind of address that, because you've actually experienced that from us, Steve. So tell people what that really means. Some people don't even know what we're talking about here. So kind of explain to them why we're giving a live demo to one of your prospective clients.
Okay. So when we talk to a client, we're asking them to do basically two things. One is to use the software that we provide, that we use to do the billing, EHR, practice management billing software, and to use our billing services when they use that software. And so in order to do that, I mean, obviously they're not going to purchase anything without seeing it. And so what we do is so what ABS does and the iClaim software people do is they provide live demos for us. And so we show it to the doctor or the practice manager, and they walk through the software. These guys do it. That's all they do, especially on the software company side. That's all they do. They just do these demos all the time. So they're very, very good at it. And they kind of, and then we give them information about the practice so that they can tailor the demo to the specific practice and to the doctor that they're talking to. And they allow the doctor or the practice manager to ask any questions they want, and they answer all those questions. And the idea is to just show them why this software will be great for their practice, better for their practice than what they're using now. And when we came to Louisville, we were getting these clients, interested clients, really quickly, and we were sending demo requests to the software people, to the demo people at the software, and they couldn't handle it. So they had too many that were going on, and they just couldn't handle it. So we sent an email to ABS, and we said, hey, we got a doctor who wants to see this demo, but we can't get we can't get it scheduled. Do you guys have anyone who can help? And so on 2 demos within, I think, a week of each other, Eric was able to jump in and help us. And he did a fantastic job. I mean, he talked to the doctor. He explained everything that needed to be explained. He was just very helpful all the way through, answered the questions. But, we were kind of, because of ABS, if it wasn't for ABS, we would have had to go back to the doctor and say, well, that slot's not available. Let's find something else. And the fact was that I was only in Louisville for a certain period of time. So I really needed it in that time frame. But because we're connected to ABS, we had an outlet and we were able to get the demo done. And we were able to sign one of the doctors right away. Bang. So,
what was interesting?
Super helpful.
What was interesting, Steve, I remember because one of the things that we ask all of our licensees to do when we get prepared for the demonstration is to give us some feedback. And so that's done through a practice analysis. And then Steve wrote me an email saying, hey, Eric, when we're doing this demonstration for this doctor, he's not even interested in the EHR. I said, no big deal. And so Steve says, just keep it about the cash flow. And so obviously that's what we did. And
Right.
Steve, you might remember one of the things I asked the doctor right up front was, doctor, how much time do you have with us today? And he says, about 20, 25 minutes. And I started laughing after I was looking at my clock there, and we were 40 minutes into the demonstration. And then out of the clear blue, he says, why don't you show me your EHR? And I was just chuckling underneath my breath here. And Steve, you even came back in an email going, man, way to go of how to, I don't even know how it happened, Steve, but it did. And you got him on both the EHR and iClaim.
That's right. So the original thing was the doc wasn't even going to be there, just the practice manager. That's right. So then the doc shows up and he's like, he's sitting there listening to the practice management side, and the office manager was loving it. I mean, he was like making all these comments about how this is so great. And so then the doc says, all right, let me see the EHR. And then the next week we did another demo with the doc. Both of us did another demo just on the EHR with the doctor, and allowed him to ask all the questions that he wanted. And those demos were extremely helpful. And like I said, after the second demo, we presented a contract and a proposal to them. That was Friday afternoon. On Monday morning, the following Monday morning, we had a signed contract and a new client.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
It was great. That was great.
What type of provider was it?
It was actually a mental health practice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so our first client was mental health. And one of the things they say at the training is a lot of licensees, whatever their first client is, they tend to get a niche. And so when we found these guys were looking for a biller, we were able to talk about the mental health aspects of the business and of our billing services in a very expert way. And that's really what drew them in, I think. So that's why I think you can get that niche. Once you gain experience with one type of doctor, then it becomes easier and easier to get to the next one and the next one. And that was definitely our experience.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go jump. Eric, anything else you want to add about the demos?
No, except to me, it continues to validate what we're doing on the front end with prospects that are on the call today. Now you're hearing someone who's gone through it, kind of gone through all the bumps and bruises, never stops the challenge. And then when we get it to the part where you, like Steve said, you just stick to the plan of what you learn in training, and then you just go through the processes here. It's just going to work out because, Steve, I think you're really recognizing the real need for doctors, number one, to stay independent, and secondly, to keep doctors from having to go into hospitals or become employees of these monstrosities there, because it just gives the doctor a better sense to give better care to their patients without having to be an employee of some hospital or something else.
Yes, and I got to say, in Vermont, there's basically one major hospital. And so having doctors employed by the hospital means that there's really one provider. And so we do fight that all the time. We want to keep doctors independent because independent doctors do things that big practice groups or hospitals might not want to do, and they actually make healthcare better for everyone. They keep prices low, they innovate, they do. Yes, we're totally passionate about that job, keeping doctors independent, and that's our job. Being a medical biller, of course, that's what we do, but the reason we do it is so that the doctors can stay independent.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I co-wrote the book, The New Thriving Medical Practice, with Dr. Vicki Ratner, because as our subtitle on it says, how to get off the hamster wheel, work smarter, not harder, generate more revenue, and enjoy greater career satisfaction in the post-Obamacare era. Doctors identify with this book. It's a great marketing tool, and that's part of the reason why we publish books like this, specifically so our licensees have something that gives them something to hand to a doctor, that educates the doctor, and hopefully gets them interested enough to set to a demo.
Right, that's right.
All right, let's see. I got a question here too from Tarik. He says, any tips on how to break through very small markets? Maybe he's in a small town or something there. Any tips on what you guys did there? I mean, you got 3 clients. That's probably
we did.
all the doctors in Vermont, isn't it?
No, not quite, but it seems like it sometimes. So I would say, okay, one of the disadvantages we had being in Vermont is that we were new to Vermont. So we had only lived in Vermont for about a year when we started the business.
Okay.
So if you're in a small market and you have lived in that area for many years, and you have a lot of friends and contacts, maybe at a church or at some kind of social thing or events, and you've been involved in that kind of stuff, you're going to have a much easier time than we did, because you'll have people who know you, and they'll be able to vouch for you, and they'll be able to refer you to people. So that was our biggest disadvantage. And so that's why we decided to try cold calling with the doctors. And like I said, we got one client that way, but then we realized that we needed to manufacture essentially a relationship with the doctor somehow. And that's when we went to the networking. The networking route. And that way we were able to meet people who knew doctors, and they were able to introduce us to different people. So that helped. We got a client that way. So, really what it comes down to is getting to know your market, getting to know the market itself, your position in the market in the sense of who you know and how well you know the area and that kind of stuff. And I think if we had been like lifelong Vermonters, and we started this business, we would have done a lot better.
Yeah.
Just because we would have been known in that small community, but we weren't. So it was even harder for us.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons, one of those dozen ways we teach about marketing is to reach out to your warm market. If you don't have a warm market, then we also teach you how to go to organizations like BNI. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Yeah. BNI.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say BNI is just a networking group, and it's a Business Network International. They're kind of all over. Matter of fact, folks, if you were on the webinar last Wednesday, Patrick and I actually talked about how to create a stream of leads into your business, and one of those ways was connecting with networking groups. So BNI is one of those groups, and Steve, I think you can kind of help remind me, but I think you can attend some of these BNI meetings as a visitor. You can also obviously become a member of that, but
right.
you want to explain how you got engaged with BNI and maybe what you can suggest even folks here today.
Yeah, so what you can do is you just go onto the BNI website, just type in BNI, I think it's BNI.com, I can't remember, but there's a website, and you can actually look for chapters in your area. And Vermont, I think it has 7 or 8 or 9, I think, BNIs in the state. The city of Louisville, I think, has like 15 just in the city of Louisville. So so you get a chance, and then you can even look at the roster of the members in the chapters that you're thinking about visiting. So for example, if there's one in Louisville here, my son was looking at them, and it was basically all trades. It was plumbers and electricians and painters. Not a great place for us to be. We want to be in a place where there's not only professional people, but really kind of like business to business type professional. So we would look for that. Now, we didn't have that option in Vermont. We had to kind of take what we got. But you can visit. You can visit if you visit 3 times. They're okay with that. Theoretically, if you visit a 4th time, they start to, kind of get upset, like, why aren't you joining? But I've never actually seen that happen. I think it's okay to visit. And you can visit multiple ones before you join. So you can find out the ones that you're going to be comfortable with, and who did you connect with, and things like that. And then you get into it, and basically what you're doing there is you're trying to build relationships with other people in the community, and that will help you to then, kind of like, basically it's creating a warm market where one doesn't exist, so that you can get referrals and give referrals to the people in your group.
Yeah, I think
it's actually it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing.
I think Eric's looking up, what is that, Ocean Springs, Mississippi? Is that what that is, Eric? Just one particular area there, huh? Yeah. Wow.
This was one of our attendees today, so I thought I'd just pick that city. So that's, again, while we ask you to type in your city and state, we can kind of look up some things like this for you. So this kind of just gives you a feel for what BNI is and what it can do for you.
Kenneth is laughing at us here on the text here. He's got an LOL up there, so I guess that's maybe him. Well, Kenneth, I hope that answered your question about that. Hey, here's a question from Haley. Says, what was the history of your financial results as you added clients? Is this typical compared with other franchisees? So, Steve,
read it again.
To you, yeah.
Yeah, read that again.
Well, she says, what was the history of your financial results as you added clients? Can you give us a feel, without telling us what's in your bank account right now, Steve, what kind of money, because another question is, says, I don't know if you want to answer this, but this is from Sepida. He says, but if it's okay, can you tell us how much do you make with these 3 doctors? So again, you don't have to tell us the specifics, but give us a feel for that.
Okay, so one of the other problems in Vermont is not only are there a few doctors, but the doctors don't make a ton of money. So one of our practices actually has, I think, 7 doctors in it, but they're mental health therapists, and we make about $3,500 from them each month. All right, and that's kind of low, but a lot of them are part-time, and a lot of them aren't licensed yet, so their reimbursement rates are kind of low. Then we have another one who's actually a unique kind of a doctor. One doctor practice, and she's getting us about $4,500 a month. And then we have another practice, and he's just a single doctor, an older guy, been in practice for a long time, and his is very small, and his is about $1,000 a month. So you're looking at about $9,000 or $10,000 a month from those 3 practices. Yeah. But again, this is Vermont. Everything's small. And I think that our mental health practice down here is going to net us about, close to the same as what the one in Vermont is, with half the providers. So that's, so there's more people. They have more patients. They, do more. They fill their schedule more. Everybody's full time. So there's a difference there. And the other thing is, I'll just say this. A mental health practitioner, I think, is the second lowest paid doctor out there. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because a lot of times doctors will meet patients every 10 minutes, but a mental health therapist will sit down with a patient for 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
So there's just not as much, you don't have as many patients that you can see in an 8-hour day as a typical doctor can. So fewer claims, less reimbursement, that kind of thing. So that's about where we are right now. We want to push it a little bit more. We want to get more money coming in. That's why we're in Louisville. That's why we're trying to connect with more practices.
Yeah, and Haley, to answer the second part of your question, is this typical? Everybody, it's always different. Every licensee is different. I've got one licensee, he makes about 15 grand a month off of one large group that he does the billing for. Yeah. So it just depends on the volume of the doctors, like Steve says, how many patients they're seeing and what they're charging, of course. Haley also asked, can you maintain the Vermont clients after moving south?
Yes, we can. And that's the beauty of this. One of the things I liked about it when we signed up was that it wasn't a franchise where you're given a territory. It was a license that allows you to connect with ABS and do the things that we do, but you can do it anywhere you want. And so, and so we're able to, that's why we're able to be flexible and decide what market we want to be in. But the other thing, of course, is that everything we do is cloud-based, and that means that we can be anywhere. It doesn't matter. The client will post claims up on the system, and we'll be able to, wherever we are, to connect to the system and send things off. So there's no problem with maintaining it. The only part that that's a little bit of a challenge is the face-to-face side. But these clients that we have, we've done a lot of face-to-face with them, and so I think we'll be okay. You know, just kind of going up to Vermont every once in a while and sitting down with them. It shouldn't be a problem.
Sure. I've got licensees, got clients all over the country, and they've said that they haven't met most of them, you know, because they were referrals from doctors. If you get a referral from a doctor in your area to another doctor in another state, you can do everything over the phone and over the internet. I mean, you don't actually have to go out and travel and visit anybody. They trust the doctor that referred you, and they just go, yeah, sign us up.
Cool.
Bill says, how many total clients now?
4.
Yeah, 4. All right.
Yeah.
And so, folks, this has been really interesting to hear from somebody. This is your chance, by the way. We got about 5 more minutes. We'll keep Steve on here. Are you okay with that, Steve?
Yep. Can I say something?
Sure. Yeah.
A little testimony. So when I was thinking about doing this, you know, I have a lawyer mind, which means I trust no one and I'm skeptical about everything. And so I looked into it every way I could. And even coming to Texas, you know, I mean, I must have asked, I don't know if Patrick, if you remember, I probably asked 1,000 questions in the 5 days we were there. And one of the things that impressed me, honestly, was nobody ever flinched at a question. They just answered the question. It's like they expected you to ask. They already knew the answer. Here's how we do this. And then, and one of the assurances that we got before we went there is that if we didn't like what we saw during those 5 days, we could ask for our money back and we would get it back. Now, that's a nice promise, you know, but if you guys are a bunch of charlatans, that promise doesn't mean anything, right? So, but we went and we actually saw a person say that they didn't want to do it, and we actually watched you guys pay the money back. So that was like right in front of us in our experience. Someone decided she didn't want to do it, and you guys paid her back just like you said you would. And so, I mean, like I said, I looked at it every possible way, and I asked every possible question, and I'm coming out of this saying this is a great business relationship that I have with ABS. And if I wanted to start a medical billing business on my own, I think I would be out of business by now, because I think ABS really supports you enough to keep you going and give you information and direct you in the right place. It's like a partnership that you really need to get this thing going and to sustain it.
Thank you, Steve. That's, you know, I don't even remember that, giving that money back. I guess my staff did that and I wasn't even aware of it, but it does happen. You know,
yeah, it does. So
it has happened. That's very rare. I don't even remember when it happened that I remember. But the point is that we continue to tell people, look, if you don't like what you see here, we don't need you as a licensee. We don't want your money. We don't want you to stay in the business. Go find a Subway sandwich shop. Of course, it'll cost you a lot more money, but you know, go do something that you really want to do. And you know, you could start a sandwich shop. I think most people know how to make a sandwich, right? But they sell a lot of franchises because, you know, it's a system. And that's all we have, really. We just have proven that we know how to duplicate what me and my wife did back in the 80s. Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Tarik says, I second the point of great support. Thank you, Tarik. Appreciate that. Edmund says, who is your competition? Now, Edmund, you might want to clarify, do you mean us, ABS, as a company, or with Steve himself? Meanwhile, Steve, thank you so much for your time, for being on here. This has been, I'm sure, very helpful to a lot of people. And I don't know if you've actually taken some calls from prospective licensees, but I
did.
And if people
just recently, I talked to one of them. Yeah.
Okay. So if somebody on this today wants to speak with you, can we kind of direct them through the person that sent them the email to this, and they can give your number?
Sure,
I don't
absolutely.
want to do that on the webinar itself. Sometimes if we give out a phone number,
obviously,
a lot of calls coming in, you know, because I don't know. We had about 45 people signed up today. Okay, let's see. So while we're waiting for Edmund maybe to clarify that, okay. Oh, this is just from Adrena. As usual, very informative. Thank you all. All right. Well, Steve, thanks again. Hey.